In the year 401 BC, a band of exhausted Greek soldiers marched through the deserts of Mesopotamia, fleeing from enemies who hunted them across a foreign land. Their leaders were dead. Their mission had failed, and survival was all that mattered now. Day after day, they pushed forward through an unfamiliar landscape of rivers, plains, and endless dust. Then, something extraordinary appeared on the horizon. Rising from the desert stood the ruins of a colossal city. Broken walls stretched farther than the eye could see. Towering monuments crumbled beneath centuries of wind and sand. It was larger than any city most of those soldiers had ever seen. Yet no one living nearby could explain who had built it. No one even remembered its name. The Greeks were staring at the remains of Nineveh. Once, it had been the heart of the most feared empire on earth, an empire that forged iron into power, conquered kingdoms across the ancient world, and filled its cities with wealth, knowledge, and ambition. Yet somehow, it vanished so completely that later generations forgot it had ever existed. How did this empire rise? What transformed a small city on the banks of the Tigris into the dominant power of the ancient Near East? And what turned the rulers of the world into nothing more than ruins beneath the desert sands? Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy deep ancient history documentaries, consider subscribing to Crowned History and joining us on this journey through the ancient world. Now, let's travel back more than 3,000 years to the land where the story of Assyria began. To understand Assyria, we must first travel back to the land that gave birth to it. Long before the Assyrians existed, the region known as Mesopotamia was already one of the most remarkable places on earth. The name Mesopotamia means the land between rivers, and those rivers were the mighty Tigris and Euphrates. Flowing south from the mountains of modern Turkey, they carried fertile soil across an otherwise harsh landscape of deserts and dry plains. Seen from above, these rivers appeared like ribbons of green cutting through an ocean of dust. For thousands of years, these waters sustained life. Farmers dug canals to irrigate their crops. Merchants carried goods along river routes. Settlements grew into towns, and towns became cities. It was here that some of humanity's earliest civilizations emerged. The Sumerians built the first great cities. They developed writing, organized government, monumental architecture, and complex religion. Later came the Akkadians, who created one of the world's earliest empires under the legendary ruler Sargon the Great. By the time Assyria appeared, these civilizations were already ancient. Their temples had stood for centuries. Their stories were told around countless hearth fires. Their kings had become legends. The people who would later become the Assyrians inherited this world. They learned from it, traded with it, and absorbed many of its traditions. Far from seeing themselves as pioneers living at the dawn of history, they believed they stood at the end of a long chain of human achievement. And one day, they would attempt something greater than anything their predecessors had imagined. But Mesopotamia was only the stage. The civilization that would one day dominate this land had not yet appeared. Now, let's travel north to a small city called Ashur. Around the 3rd millennium BC, a small settlement stood on the western bank of the Tigris River. Its name was Ashur. At first glance, it was nothing remarkable. Its homes were built from mud brick. Narrow streets wound between simple buildings. The smell of livestock, river water, and wood smoke filled the air. Yet Ashur possessed advantages that would shape its future. Its location placed it along important trade routes linking northern mountains with the rich cities of southern Mesopotamia. Merchants arrived carrying copper, tin, timber, textiles, and precious stones. Trade brought wealth, and wealth brought growth. Over time, larger homes appeared, storehouses filled with valuable goods. Merchant families accumulated fortunes and established networks stretching across distant lands. Archaeological discoveries reveal a city increasingly connected to the wider world. Clay tablets recorded commercial transactions. Business partnerships crossed hundreds of kilometers. Prosperity spread through the growing settlement. Religion flourished alongside commerce. Temples dedicated to numerous Mesopotamian gods rose above the streets. Priests conducted ceremonies. Hymns echoed through sacred courtyards. As generations passed, the city developed a unique relationship with one particular deity. That god was Ashur. Named after the city itself, Ashur gradually became the protector and symbol of the community. The fortunes of the city and its god became inseparable. As Ashur grew wealthier and more influential, so too did the prestige of its divine guardian. What began as a local cult slowly transformed into the foundation of an entire civilization. The people of Ashur would eventually become known as the Assyrians, and from this modest riverside settlement would emerge one of the most powerful empires the ancient world had ever seen. But wealth alone does not create an empire. The Assyrians still needed something even more powerful, a shared identity, and a belief that their destiny was different from everyone else's. As the city of Ashur grew richer, something equally important was taking shape in the minds of its people. Throughout Mesopotamia, every city possessed a patron deity. These gods were believed to protect their communities, guide their rulers, and determine their fortunes. For the people of Ashur, this relationship became especially important. Their patron deity shared the same name as the city itself. Ashur was no longer merely a local god. Over time, he became the embodiment of the city's destiny. His image appeared in temples, carvings, and royal inscriptions. As Assyrian confidence grew, so did the status of Ashur. Many older Mesopotamian traditions placed other gods at the center of the divine order. But in Ashur, a different view emerged. The people increasingly believed that Ashur was the supreme god. Their kings ruled in his name. Their victories belonged to him. Their future depended upon his favor. This belief created something powerful. It united merchants, farmers, priests, and rulers beneath a common identity. The city was no longer simply a place. It was a mission. The Assyrians came to see themselves as a people whose success reflected the will of their god. Generations later, when Assyrian armies marched across continents, many would believe they were carrying out the wishes of Ashur himself. If you're enjoying the story so far, leave a comment and tell us which ancient empire you would most like to visit if time travel were possible. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Crowned History for more journeys into the ancient world. But belief alone could not guarantee survival. The Assyrians were about to enter centuries of uncertainty. Despite its growing confidence, Ashur did not immediately become a great empire. For centuries, the city existed among larger and more powerful neighbors. At different times, it fell under the influence of Babylon, Mitanni, and the Hittites. Each time the Assyrians gained strength, another regional power seemed ready to absorb them. Yet, they never disappeared. Again and again they adapted. Again and again they recovered. The city's merchants continued trading. Its priests continued worshiping. Its rulers continued waiting for opportunities. This long struggle shaped the Assyrian character. Unlike civilizations that enjoyed long periods of peace and security, the Assyrians grew accustomed to uncertainty. They lived in a world where threats could emerge from every direction. Nomadic tribes moved across the plains. Rival kingdoms competed for trade routes. Power shifted constantly. Survival demanded vigilance. Military skill became increasingly valued. Kings celebrated courage, discipline, and endurance. Stories praised warriors who advanced into battle despite overwhelming odds. To later generations, these centuries became a source of pride. The Assyrians saw themselves as a people who had endured hardships that would have destroyed others. Every setback became a lesson. Every defeat became preparation. Every crisis made them stronger. Without realizing it, they were preparing for one of the greatest catastrophes in ancient history, a disaster that would destroy kingdoms, erase cities, and transform the entire ancient world. The Age of Bronze was about to end. Around 1200 BC, the ancient world entered a period of chaos. Across the eastern Mediterranean, kingdoms collapsed. Trade routes disappeared. Major cities were abandoned. Entire political systems fell apart. Historians today call this event the Bronze Age collapse. The causes remain debated. Climate change, migration, famine, warfare, and political instability may all have played a role. Whatever the reason, the effects were devastating. Powerful civilizations that had dominated the region for centuries suddenly vanished. For Assyria, the danger was immense. The kingdom lost territory. Enemies surrounded its borders. Important trade routes fell into hostile hands. At one point, Assyria controlled little more than a narrow strip of land along the Tigris River. Many states would have disappeared under such pressure. Assyria did not. Instead, its rulers made a difficult choice. Rather than overextending themselves, they withdrew to their core territories and focused on survival. The strategy worked. While other civilizations collapsed completely, Assyria endured. Its cities remained active. Its institutions survived. Its royal line continued. And when the storm finally passed, the Assyrians found themselves standing in a transformed world. Many of their old rivals were gone. New opportunities appeared. Then came a ruler determined to seize those opportunities. His name was Tiglath-Pileser I. An ambitious king and gifted commander, he launched campaigns across neighboring lands, restored Assyrian prestige, and reopened important trade routes. For the first time in generations, Assyria was no longer simply surviving. It was growing. The long recovery had begun. The Empire of Iron was still centuries away, but the foundations had finally been laid. Before we move on, let me know in the comments what surprised you most about Assyria's early history. Was it their survival through centuries of conflict? Or the fact that they endured one of history's greatest collapses while so many others vanished? When the Bronze Age collapsed, countless cities vanished from history. Kingdoms that once seemed invincible disappeared beneath the weight of crisis and change. Yet among the ruins, one small kingdom endured. Assyria survived where many others failed. Its people adapted, endured hardship, and waited patiently for their opportunity. From the outside, it was still only a regional power struggling to secure its borders. But beneath the surface, something important was changing. The lessons learned through centuries of survival were creating a tougher, more disciplined society. Soon, new technologies would emerge, new armies would be forged, and new kings would dream far beyond the banks of the Tigris River. The age of survival was ending. The age of conquest was about to begin.